All right. Then welcome to Kim Williston, and we'll introduce the folks that you have here. Well, do we need a motion to approve that agenda? Yes, we do. I thought about it and quickly forgot. Would someone please? Thank you. Councillor Stout, all in favor? Thank you. Now, Ms. Wilson, would you like to introduce us to our guests?
Yes, so with me I have Jen and I have Jeff, and they are consultants with Urban Matters, and FCSS has retained the services of Urban Matters to help us with the development of the social master plan. So as you're all aware, that was approved in the 2018 budget, and we started working with Urban Matters in about September of last year. And so I asked them to come and speak with you and to provide a little bit of an update of where we are at in the process. And I hope that you'll receive their report information and we'll have time for some questions. And just to sort of set the context that the master plan is being led by FCSS. We're facilitating this process with the help of Urban Matters. However, it is important to understand that this is bigger than FCSS. It's the social master plan. So although we are kind of leading the process in consultation with Urban Matters, as you will hear through the presentation, that it is obviously a much broader process and perspective. So, Jen?
Sure. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share where we are with the social master plan. And I hope after tonight you'll have a sense of the community engagement that will be involved over the next few months, and when we'll return back to you with a draft plan for your approval. So here. As Kim mentioned, my name is Jen Casorso, and this is my colleague Jeff Koo, and I work for Urban Matters. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Urban Matters as a company to help connect some of the dots for you on our experience and expertise in helping to develop a social master plan. So I'll do that first, and then we'll go in a little bit, talk about the social determinants of health. Hopefully that will help to connect all of your knowledge and insight with what social determinants of health are. We'll talk about the master plan objectives, the plan process, so the engagement, the approaches that we'll take, those objectives, and some of the key messages as we move forward. Also an opportunity for you to ask me some questions, or ask some questions. Hopefully no zingers, though. So Urban Matters, we're a team of independent advisors and catalysts working with communities on tangible means of addressing complex social issues. So we get to the heart of those complex social issues, create partnerships to implement creative solutions with sustainable outcomes. So some describe us as folks that untie the knots and connect the dots between government, nonprofit, and the corporate sector. Clients engage us to build capacity in communities while doing at least one or sometimes all three of these. And I'll just show you the next slide quickly, and I'll go back to the other one, which is convene, consult, and create. These issues that we tackle are the ones that are in the news and keep our clients up at night. These include housing insecurity, the opioid crisis, and issues related to social and economic inclusion, just to name a few. Ultimately, our vision is to support people experiencing vulnerable situations to realize more prosperity and live healthier lives. So Urban Matters is an offshoot of Urban Systems, which is a 500-person strong interdisciplinary professional service firm providing strategic planning, engineering, environmental science, and urban planning to both public and private sector clients through Western Canada since 1975. So Urban Matters was incorporated as one of the first community contribution companies in British Columbia, and it's a hybrid model designed to bridge the gap between for-profit businesses and nonprofit enterprises. And it's required to put a cap on dividends and channel 60% of our profit back to community innovation activities. And so we're on a mission to demonstrate what more can be done when a business-minded community contribution model is applied. To give you a little bit of context about us and what our goals and aspirations are for communities. So I'm going to dive in a little bit, maybe just it's a slight little lesson. I just try to keep it really brief, but the framework that we're using for this project was developed by the World Health Organization, Commission for Social Determinants. So health is variable, and not just across individuals, but across populations. So health is influenced largely by income, occupation, and education. And to understand how to improve health, we need to consider factors that influence it in order to support change, such as the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. So these factors are known as the social determinants of health. There are two broad categories known as structural and intermediary determinants. The structural determinants refer to the socioeconomic and political context for which people are born into and live. And these include governance, policies, both social and economic, values such as cultural values, and the communities that communities place on health. However, this can lead to an unequal distribution of material and monetary resources which shape a person's socioeconomic position in community. The socioeconomic position describes a person's place in society, which can affect their exposure, vulnerability, and outcomes to conditions that have an impact on their health. It's determined by a number of factors, including education, occupation, income, gender, ethnicity, social class. This, in turn, affects their intermediate determinants of health. And these include material circumstances such as the quality of housing, the financial means to buy healthy food, clothing, or other requirements required for a healthy life, the work environment, psychosocial circumstances like stressful living environments, and behavioral and biological changes. In addition to these, health systems have an impact on the quality and type of healthcare available to people. It determines how easy it is for people to access these services and receive healthcare they need. Factors like social cohesion and social capital are factors that bridge the structural and intermediate determinants, and they describe the willingness of people in the community to make sacrifices and cooperate with each other for a wider benefit. Intermediary determinants and health equities are not a linear complex. They can go in many directions. For example, poor income and education can impact poor health, and can impact and poor health can impact people's ability to enter the workforce. Also, if a community is impacted by a lot of disease, it can have a broader impact on the socioeconomic and political context in communities. So how can we change these? Addressing them is not an easy task. It involves identifying the structural and intermediary determinants of health, which is what we're doing with the support of FCSS, and taking action to identify needs in all sectors of society that include local, provincial, and national or international support. So that's a little bit on the social determinants of health, and like I said, we're working with Kim and her team at FCSS and the broader community to help identify what these determinants are, the ones that are the most priority. We'll call them social domains at this point. And through our early analysis, what we've done is we've taken a look at all of the plans and processes that you have in place throughout the organization, all of the public feedback that was obtained through those processes, at least in the last year, and to determine where there are some of the health, social determinants of health that are linked in your other plans. So the master plan objectives are, one, understanding the current context of social planning and community development, organization and system level assets, and areas of improvement. We also want to harvest stories that can inform strategies. I'll outline how we'll do that in a minute. We also want to generate buy-in from stakeholders related to various potential solutions that we identify. And we want to identify potential partnerships and opportunities for increased collaboration. This is not just a responsibility of government, this is a responsibility of community, and with Kim and her team, we've been working with the Beaumont Interagency Group, which is a great coalition in the community. We want to help strengthen their capacity in community to help address some of these social challenges. So this is the IDP2 engagement public participation spectrum. And we've been working on a couple of parts of the spectrum right now. So first of all, core collaborators are the folks that we want to collaborate with. As I mentioned, it's the Beaumont Interagency Group. We'll also have a set of key stakeholders that help support some of the regional supports that are provided in Beaumont. We want to involve first voices and stakeholders. So first voice, meaning people with the lived experience of health inequity. So people living in poverty, we have lower income, lower education, and really try to get at the heart of where their challenges are. And then the public, checking with the public, understand where their perspectives are on from some of the engagement you've already done around livability and what makes Beaumont Beaumont. Our engagement activities, we're looking at doing one-on-one interviews with key stakeholders. The stakeholders will be identified by the FCSS team. Focus groups with First Voice, and we'll do that through some of the programs that are operated through FCSS and other partners. We have proposed to do a public online survey, and this is going to be dependent on some of the outputs from those first two pieces of information collected to help us understand maybe some of the gaps that might exist. As well, we'll check in with Beaumont communications team to ensure that the survey isn't conflicting with any of the other engagements that you already have going on in the community. We will do some strategy development through workshops with core collaborators. We did one in December, and we have another one coming up in March. And then we've got internal Beaumont team workshops. So the FCSS team tomorrow, and we have the cross-functional team as well tomorrow afternoon. And we'll come back to them again. So if you look at the phases, we identified phase 1 was project initiation, prepare communications engagement plan, and project management. And project management continues throughout the whole process, but we have completed phase 1 at this point. We're entering into phase 2, which is where we've done the internal external document review of all of your plans and the public feedback provided to those plans. As I mentioned already, we did the core collaborator workshop. Right now we're at 2.3, which is the internal workshop, and we'll conduct the stakeholder interviews here in the next 2 months. Phase 3, we'll start to explore some of the best practices research related to actions, tangible actions to address social determinants of health. This would be the time as well when we would consider putting out a public online survey, conduct the focus groups, and host the core collaborator workshop. So anticipated timeline is spring. We'd also draft the plan, and then later spring, beginning of June is when we would complete phase 4, just the core collaborator workshop 3 with the Beaumont Interagency Group, finalize the strategy based on their feedback, host our second internal Beaumont workshop with FCSS and the cross-functional group, and do our final presentation to yourself. Wanted to provide you with a couple of key messages that we came up with for the project, just to help with communities understanding some of the importance of why the social master plan. So social determinants of health have a broad range of personal, social, economic, environmental factors that determine individual and population health. Differences in health status of individuals are groups called health inequalities, and they can be unfair or unjust and modifiable. Reducing health inequalities means helping to give everyone the same opportunities to be healthy, no matter who they are or where they live. Issues surrounding the social determinants of health are complex. Addressing the current dynamic situation and preparing Beaumont for the future requires exploration of social solutions that takes a collective approach and involves individuals, cross-sector groups, community service providers, internal departments, and other levels of government. So it's really trying to gather the support of everyone in the community. Work will occur over the next 6 months and will involve a review and research of best practices, data gathering, and engagement of a variety of stakeholders. Outcome will be a strategy that has been created by members of the community and social serving sector, and which supports collective action and collaboration to achieve sustainable solutions over 10 years. The work is being led by CSS, as Kim mentioned at the beginning, and we're here to provide support and capacity building in the community. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, this process at this point, so we're moving to content. I have a couple of questions just to go there, but I'm looking first to the rest of my colleagues to see if anyone wants to jump in. Anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
You go. I've got some. You go.
We'll go back and forth.
You go smart.
Which one to start first? I think what I'd like to hear first is a process that you plan to use if you have that developed. I think you would probably have by now around involving people who are least likely to want to be involved or to be able to participate. So do you have any unique ways of reaching into the community to ensure that the people who we most need to hear how they're doing can, in a safe way, share that information with us?
Yeah, we've talked with Kim a bit about this in terms of how we plan some of the focus groups. That would be one of the main areas, and be tapping into some of the existing kind of groups that already come together. So not creating a new space for them to come into. It's maybe uncomfortable for them, but rather going to them where they need. And working with her staff team. They're also very closely connected to some of the most vulnerable in the community, so drawing out their experiences and perspectives on working with those individuals. So those are the two kind of real mechanisms of drawing out some of those voices that might not speak up.
Glad to hear that you're planning that approach. Do you want to ask one?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for the overview. I found the social determinant piece very fascinating. And thanks for your work and leading us through it. It's a really important thing for our community. I think if you drive around, most people, when you see other socioeconomic numbers that are very high level, and don't meet every come around, it's pretty good. And so I think it's important that we grounded in this. So I'm looking forward to going through this part of the process. And I appreciate your spectrum there on the IFP2 piece. I wanted to tap in a little bit what Councillor Barnhart mentioned there about around those first voices and ensuring how and so you've had them kind of get involved. You've obviously done this work before, and so there's a reason why they're not part of that collaborative piece. Just provide some background as to why we don't, because I think Councillor Barnhart is correct, like that is probably the most important voice and the one that's probably the hardest to get out, right? And so the more you have involving them to collaborate to provide the solution, the better chance they're going to be able to provide that content. So just provide some background as to why that first voice was in that kind of long spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. I think in our conversations with Kim and the rest of the team, putting them into the Evolve was directly kind of related to the Beaumont interagency group's capacity and needing to help build up their capacity in order to help respond. Because if there's the strength within the social service community, that'll help with how to meet some of the needs of the folks with First Voice. Not bringing them in as a collaborator doesn't mean that it can't happen. We look at some of these as an iterative process, and so the focus groups is sort of like a first opportunity to gather some of their thoughts and perspectives. But means if there are individuals there that express interest in being involved, we would welcome their participation in the workshops that would continue beyond that. So it's not a closed door. We just, for the purpose of showing you where we were thinking about putting them. That's
good. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
You said key stakeholders, and you said you'd engage in key stakeholders, but you didn't say who they are. Would you maybe spend a little bit of time explaining who the key stakeholders are and how they were identified, maybe how they're identified and who they are in our community?
I'll have to look at my list. Okay.
Jump in. So we have a collaborative group called the Beaumont Interagency Group, so we call it BIG. So this big group meets on a quarterly basis. The big group is made up of social service providers in Beaumont and our region. analytic region. So just to give you an example, so that would be Alberta Health Services, would be at the table, which is their mental health and their addictions piece. Their public health is at the table. We also have agencies such as Woodham Foundation, we have the Duke Food Bank, we have RCMP, we have various staff from NCSS, we have school participation for family school liaison workers, agencies such as money mentors. There's about 20 of us represented at that interagency group. So I would say from all spectrums of, the social services area, I think we've got pretty good coverage at that group. So it was a natural fit for us because we already had this collaborative. So we had those key people at the table to start our first engagement process with.
Councillor.
No, just going to piggyback. Yeah. What about the churches?
Yeah.
Ministerial didn't attend that meeting, but they do attend. We do have a representative, but they do attend. I just can't remember if their representative was there.
So do all the churches have a representative? Church
they have a ministerial association, and from that association we have one person that represents, yes.
Councillor Van Dijk.
And then would the intention be from those stakeholder groups, which is groups of people who are aware of situations, how do we draw upon the voice of the residents? Because we're very much trusting ear to the ground of all those groups, but how do we draw on the actual voice of the residents in this process? So.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of different approaches here. Generally, folks that are accessing FCSS services already will be attached to other agencies and supports within the community. And so is it easiest? I'm not sure, but the most available group to us is to work with the folks that are already attached to some services with FCSS. And part of the focus groups will be asking them, what other services do they access in the community to help us understand where they might be going. And if there appears to be a gap in that, we would then seek another focus group through the Beaumont Interagency Group in order to help get at more residents.
If I may, Jen. Yeah. I think where the gap is for me right now is understanding how someone who's not already plugged in to one of the groups and the agencies, how do we know why they're not? What are the barriers to that? So is there a way? I know it's difficult.
I feel like that's $1 million question.
Okay. I know that, but I think you need to explain that.
Some questions maybe answered.
Yeah, it's not an easy one for sure, right? And I think we're trying to. In this project, we're trying to understand what are the social determinants, the circumstances contributing to folks' social determinants of health right now that are maybe elevated over others, and then explore why and what is the role of local government in helping to address those, and what is the role of the broader community in addressing those. So it isn't necessarily going to get to every resident that we'd hope to.
It's not a needs assessment. We've done
that's right.
A bit of a needs assessment.
Yeah.
But we're always at a bit of a loss because we can't talk to somebody that won't talk to us.
Exactly.
It's difficult. And you hear stories and anecdotes is what.
Yeah. So we're really using this.
What's working is what you're going after.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you build on that capacity, right? And knowing that there's a big regional play here as well. The Duke plays a huge role in providing social services in the community as well, Edmonton. And so there's a lot of other influences into the community. And so what role do you have as local government in helping to influence those things and support them? Yeah.
Councillor Bunkus, where did you have that?
Yeah, just really quickly, just kind of following on from Councillor Van Dijk. So 2019 is kind of, for us, is like the year of the master plan. We've got master plans here,
Yes.
Which is good. And so I just want to be clear that this one here, this seems, and so I'm always concerned about consultation fatigue and all that sort of stuff. And so obviously you're plugged in with the right groups to make sure that we're not kind of dovetailing. We've got some conversations coming up around childcare and all that sort of stuff. How does that? But from what I'm hearing here, which want to clarify is that this is more focused conversation where we're not going out and necessarily posting on our website saying, hey, everyone in Beaumont comment on this. This is more focused engagement with the so that would kind of relieve some of the concerns about that consultation fatigue. So that's true. You're nodding, so I'm assuming
it is true, and it's in complete recognition of all of the engagement that you're involved in now and through the course of the year and in the previous year. Full recognition of consultation fatigue, right? And what's where's the value for you in the social master plan that we can build that gives you like tangible actions that don't necessarily need like the broad community consultation. Again, this is why we did a scan of all of the plans, all of the public engagement feedback that was received in the last year through all of the engagements that you've done. And we mined through all of that input that the public had provided to those, pulled out where they're connected to this social master plan. So it's almost as if all those voices there have come into this, right? And then to get really focused in on some targeted populations that FCSS has identified have some immediate challenges and can benefit from more strategic and collaborative work.
Thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Will there be a focus and a gathering voice from those in the community who may have challenged mobility? Will that be a piece of the puzzle here?
Yeah, we've talked about that from seniors to youth to people with limited mobility to families, trying to get trying to get a focus group with sort of each of those or cross section. Yeah, that gives us a good sense of.
Yeah, because the councils heard both in chambers and in conversation in the municipality that it's a concern.
Yeah.
It's hard for me, and I think us to quantify what the concern is. So I think this focused piece of engagement with them would help a lot.
Yeah.
You have some advocates in town like Mark Pickup. I think he's a very important person to make sure you engage Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, and just a final kind of question for me. If mental health obviously underpins a lot of mental wellness, a lot of what is going on. That's not out of scope, I gather. I know I believe you come from BC, but you definitely have the government of Alberta. You have to know the policies, legislation, and the gaps in services and mental health. I think mental health services, no matter where you go in North America right now, are bound to be under.
It's a resource. I would say it's in scope. The Beaumont Interagency Group already has AHS staff from Addiction Services, part of that, and it's like another current to kind of all types of
so hoping if there's some creativity it can come back about, if there's any way that we can approach that from some different angles so that we're not just saying the same thing everyone else is saying, we need more of something that there isn't more of. So yeah, we do need something there. Yes.
I have a few big picture questions down, but I think they've all been covered safely. How far forward looking is this been planned to cover? Is it a snapshot in time? Is it a 5-year look? Is it a 10-year look?
10.
Okay.
10 year. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? No, we're good. Thank you. And you'll be back to us next spring in June. Yeah. Okay. We'll wait with bated breath.
That's right.
Looking forward to it.
Hopefully be warmer, right?
Yeah.
You like the cat of the bag. I am from BC. That's right.
It gets cold there, but it's a different cold. It's a wet cold.
That's right. Although Jeff is from here.
Are you? Okay, I'll keep you grounded.
Yeah. It's fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Item 3D, Sports and Recreation Community. Ian and Carrie and Amanda. All three. Welcome.
Good evening. This evening we're here to request direction from the Committee of the Whole on how to proceed with creating a new committee of council, sport and recreation and or community services in an advisory committee role. The previous council meeting, November 16th, 2016, council resolved to direct administration to bring back a further report after the completion of the Family and Community Service and Early Childhood Development Needs Assessment report in 2017. In May 2017 council meeting, council resolved not to move forward with either committee option at that time. In April 2018 council meeting, council directed administration to review past and current opportunities for future committees of council. In April 2018 Committee of the Whole, Beaumont Sport and Recreation Association presented to the committee for information. In July 2018 Committee of the Whole, administration presented to the committee with a review of council boards and committees. The committee directed administration to look at options for sport and recreation committee. September 2018 council meeting, council approved the 2018 committees of council and further made reference for additional information on the establishment of a sport and recreation, art, and community service committee. Administration is providing two of the following options for committee members for consideration and feedback. First option is a Sport and Recreation Advisory Committee option. If a Sport and Recreation Advisory Committee is established by Council, some of the discussion ideas would be moving forward with driving the Recreation, Parks and Facilities Master Plan, advising on annual fees and charges, advising on recreation and sport priorities and operational issues. Second option would be community service option. The Community Service Advisory Committee would be more expansive than sport and recreation options. This would also include family and community support services. It would essentially focus on opportunities and issues that impact the community service portfolio for Beaumont. Administration research has found that there is one other community that has a committee structure that includes both the Sport and Recreation Committee with the social service component, and that is the City of St. Albert. Leduc County, Chestermere, and Strathcona County have a family and community support services committees. The City of Leduc is presently reviewing its Family and Community Support Service Committee structure. One of the issues that administration sees in the establishment of a more expansive Community Service Committee is trying to align the bounds between sport and recreation needs against the social service needs in the community. There is an overlap with needs and service, but the overall philosophy and delivery of the services can be quite different. If the Community Service Advisory Committee is established, some of the discussion ideas would be driving both the Recreation, Parks, Facility Master Plan and the Social Master Plan, advising on annual fees and charges, and on community service priorities and operational issues. Based on staff research and expertise, it's being recommended that the establishment of an advisory committee focusing on sport and recreation occur. Further, there's been a volunteer ad hoc committee established to drive the sport and recreation conversation forward. This falls within the Beaumont Municipal Strategic Plan of Livability. If there is approval for either committee, all appointments would be publicly advertised and would follow the committee application and appointment process. Further committee agendas and topics of community interest would be publicly advertised through media channels. Administration has met on 2 different occasions with the chair of Beaumont Sports and Recreation Association to discuss committee structure and what we heard from other communities. Best practices and experience. The association chair is in agreement to moving forward. In conclusion, administration has provided committee members with 2 options for an advisory committee: sport and recreation and the community service. Based on the findings, administration recommends that it continue working with the Beaumont Sports and Recreation Association to create a terms of reference for sport, recreation, and or community services advisory committee and bring back the terms of reference to a future council meeting for approval.
Period.
And I'm done.
You're done. Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Van Dam.
No, wait. Question, okay?
Yes, yeah. No, I was mixing up the bands and the dance.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was great and very informative outline here. So the first section being the option 1 advisory committee option. How many people do you expect to be on the committee? So we're suggesting a member of council, people included, but how many people do you anticipate? 7 to 11?
I believe we're looking at 7.
7 would be the anticipated number for either option.
There may through the committee chair, or probably if you went to a more expansive committee like the community services committee, you may require a couple more because you are covering 2 large service areas. But if it was just on the sport and recreation side, looking at best practices, a couple of those committees are in that number.
So 1 from council, and option 1 is 6 from the community.
Yeah.
So the committee appointment process.
Correct.
Okay.
A question, if I could just think, because I think it's relevant to the options before us, kind of at the beginning. And I sent this ahead of time so you'd have some idea. I was wondering, why is the recommendation only for a sport recreation or a community services and not for a social services committee? Like, why wasn't that looked at? Why? Because I do agree, right? At this point in time, I don't think Beaumont needs a community service. I think we have to kind of walk before we run. It's a bit of an evolutionary steps there. But after we just heard about some of the issues around social determinants of health and how much work has to go on there, so that one wasn't looked at. And I just wondered if there was some reason for that, because you do mention that it has the FCSIs, and I know committees are not always the way to go, but we're looking at this as good for sports and rec, but we're not looking at it as good for social services, and I'm always standing up for the social services outside of the house. Wanted to know why.
Thank you. Through the chair, is that I think when we looked at this, it was where we are in the master plan process and how that will form some of that discussion as well. After the master plan, we'll get a better sense of meeting those community needs and where we are in terms of that spectrum. We're also going off of the previous few years of council and committee direction in terms of where we were looking at in terms of FCS versus community services versus sports and rec. It seems like right now there seems to be some appetite for the sports and rec. In terms of community services and stuff like that in the past, that was kind of some of those discussions around those things. So coming back to my first point, I think the master plan will help to frame some of that.
And just because we don't deal with that today doesn't necessarily mean that it would come back later.
And council has that ability at any time to bring back those that wanted to.
These things change depending on what me.
Yeah, I was just piggybacking and throw my 2 cents in. For me, this sort of more because I didn't have a social services component in the back of my head for being part of this committee. For me, it was really sports and recreation, so advice on programming of facilities, fields that need to be built next, so that sort of thing. Basically, pretty much exactly the same way you laid it out, driving the master plan forward. So I think if we try to take off too big of a light and try to go for too big of a scope, I think if we're going to lose effectiveness, it's just going to be one of those things. And so I'm going to support option number 1.
That's good. Look how sweet. Look at you.
So thank you. I mean, I would just echo. I'll keep mine short and sweet. I think Councillor Van Newkirk is the one who kind of brought this forward and been pushing for this for a while. I'm so interested in your take on this, but option 1 makes sense to me, looking at it up front, and we'll see where we go going forward. Okay.
Yeah, I think option 1 is where would be a good place to land. I think there's some important wording in here that was put in by administration, and the stack is sounding more for operational issues and not be set up as a complaint session or lobbying group. Like, that's not the. Thanks for including that. Like, that's not the spirit of what I'm envisioning, and I think of what the community needs. Bringing together a collaborative of the leaders in sports in our community who can talk about the challenges amongst themselves and bring forward some ideas and some collaborative approaches to the growth of it in our community alongside our master plans and everything else is what I envisioned and hoped would come together. So I would support number 1 as well. One nuts and bolts question I would have was, what would quorum be if we had 7 members? What would quorum be?
2% plus 1, so 4 voting members. And council would have to be attended at the meeting. The council yes, the council member is appointed or alternative would have to be.
So yeah, that's
You probably want to go around. Were you done?
No, that's good. Thank you.
You go.
Well, I was just going to say, from a council member point of view, I know there's some pros and cons to having councillor as a voting member.
Yeah.
Because it does put. On one hand, I like it when I'm there and I can vote, but on the other hand, it means that you're somewhat co-opted when we go to the next level. So I don't know if there's any point in us discussing that further, but I think there's a pro and a con to being a voting member on there. I would say right now, not in myself, but Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just make a comment around. I think this is something that the community, particularly the sports and recreation community, has been looking for a while to have a committee stood up by council. I think you'll get significant interest in applications here to be a part of this. So just consider, I don't know if that number 7 is a hard number. I know you want to keep it tight. You don't want to go through whatever and have every single group represented, but it's going to be a challenge for you to go through that process to identify that. So I just think about it when you're going through terms of reference is sit in the right and given the scope.
Mr. Hill?
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that we did look at, we were looking at a lot of other sport, recreation, etc. type of committees, and a lot of them land around that 7 number. But what we can do is, if there is huge interest, we can always revisit that at that time. Right now, we struggle to get people to sign up for committees. And even though there's a lot of interest in this, getting people to commit to a 2-year, 3-year commitment and show up, sometimes it does make it more difficult. And if the more members you have, then yes, it's nice to have those people, but you also have a bigger quorum.
True. Councillor Hutchins?
Yeah, and if you can put some meat on the bones with respect to the agenda items, this group existed many years ago, and myself and Jerry Consuma sat on it, and we would handle the ICE users meetings. We would set up the grid for the entire year. Lots of participation at those meetings, and for everybody, trying to buy into when they
There's a reason. You don't show up, you don't get ice.
That was in the census bill. But what drove that whole process away was the idea that council is policy only. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Schwartz here, I know you don't like us to get into the weeds or operational side of anything to do with the community. So do you see this as infringing on your operations side?
Well, without seeing the terms of reference, because that's really what we'll outline what it is that's in scope or it's out of scope. So yeah, I couldn't even answer that at this point.
But that's why I say I like to have some meat on the bones, that you're not just talking fluff issues. You're talking the reality of operational items like ice users and others.
Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. And to the committee is that if you look at those first 3 issues, driving the recreation parks and master plan forward, that's going to be huge and very significant, because we have to have the buy-in from our community to really make an impact using that master plan as our main tool. It's basically advising on annual fees and charges. Every time we come with fees and charges, there seems to be a user group coming out of the woodwork at some point or another, but we need to get some buy-in on the direction, even from a philosophical, big picture fees and charges perspective. And the third one is advising recreation and sports priorities and operational issues and changes. Like we're looking at, we're right now at a cusp in recreation, and the opening of the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center and those programs and stuff, we're going to be booming. And so it's going to be, where are those priorities, and how does that affect those operational issues, and what changes are we going to make, because there's going to have to be changes in how we deal with some of our facilities even. So they're going to be busy on some pretty big issues.
Yeah, and if I can, so during our tenure, things like girls hockey showed up, and now we need dressing rooms that we basically look after that. We had ladies that were also referees along with the guys. So now we need dressing rooms that we had single goal types that girls that played in the boys teams. Where did they change? All of that came into this meeting, and I found it very educational and also collaborative. It was on a consensus basis. A lot of things got solved.
I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be making sure that it's clear what advising means. And there's a whole, as we found out on the CPCC committee and other committees, people want to actually have a say in what matters to them.
Right.
But then we say it's advisory. And so then they say, well, that means that you can just decide to do something different. And then council's put in that situation of saying no to something that the advisory committee has brought forward. So I don't know how we deal with that, but as more upfront as we can, and the training that is necessary for board members to know the difference.
Well, if I can, what would happen is the staff person who was on that board
plays a key role there.
Would bring the issue forward after consensus is developed. And, we changed janitor rooms into change rooms for some ladies. Things like that. It was just, okay, let's do this and let's bring it forward.
It's not easy. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. Through the committee, we're really looking at this as from, to affect change at the positive level, like really coming in and having those discussions and having that sounding board. This would be another form of engagement in terms of, we have ideas and we want to go in different directions or how to move forward at all. This is going to be your sounding board before you even hit the community. So anything that comes out that is significant, I'd say they're really going to push for something that is outside of the realm of what we normally do. That becomes a resolution of council. It becomes a recommendation from this committee to council. That doesn't happen very often, but that's really that's that mechanism.
Any idea on timelines when the terms of reference?
Probably be a couple months. We've got a lot of people who's coming in the next few
Yeah.
months here, so it'll be coming up in that
Yeah.
and they're aware of that. Yeah.
For the summit.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Any other comments, Councillor Dowler?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to also thank Councillor Newkirk for bringing this forward as well too. I think this idea is long overdue from the growth of our community. I know Councillor Swain and myself in the vote on the Aquafit 2 expansion, we met with the Beaumont Sports Rec Association a number of times, and they were thrilled the council was there in our capacity, talking, getting ideas from them. This is a natural extension from that dialogue. I think having a council member on the committee with a voting privilege, I think, is important. It does show we've seen the game, in my opinion. There is sometimes a double-edged sword with the voting thing. I get that, but I think having a council member on there and an alternate, if need be, really shows the committee and the community as a whole that we believe in this advisory committee. I think it's going to be a great thing for our community, especially with the master plan coming up. There's a lot of work with that to go through. And by the way, they gave you a lot of kudos for your work with the Sports Association. I mentioned a couple of times you were very helpful with them, and Matt yourself as well too. So thanks for that work. Thank you.
Sounds like we just have a question. Okay.
It's good. Option one.
Option.
Just to summarize.
Yeah.
I got the directions. Thank you.
I think we need to focus on the.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I get 30 seconds to get the contract?
You sure can. Ms. Mayor, you can do whatever you want. 30-second break for cough drops. Councillor Dowler said
Yes.
that committee that formed way back when, actually 3 or 4 years ago. I went to one of their first meetings as well because I could see that this was coming in that direction.
There's,
so totally supportive of it.
They were very happy that we were out there before that with the expansion vote, talking to them.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Hendricks goes
They were just thrilled.
So we've all been supportive of the sports and recreation.
Huh?
We're still on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. We're just chatting.
Yeah, it was the piece regarding the ice users. That was generally my best meeting of the year with the group because you had the figure skaters, the ring ends, cross, everything, hockey, minor, Chiefs, all trying to, all you had to do was figure out 1 week.
Everybody could do it.
1 week, 1 week. And then put the ice in and take it out.
Yeah.
So much good stuff, yeah.
It's a great way to really know what's happening.
And then you have all the conversations and stuff. And you'd be amazed at just stuff.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. We're still live, so we were just having a nice little coffee side chat, our fireside chat here.
Nice to hear that.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to be.
We're excited that we're still live.
Discuss them. I was sitting by myself, telling me that the results of themselves. Yes.
Okay. Ready to call meeting. It didn't go out of order, but it was kind of chaotic, but it wasn't out of order.
Little delayed.
We're now back. Mr. Harris, welcome. And the item is policy FIN 1602, elected officials remuneration.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. Before you is policy FIN 1901, which will replace policy FIN 1602, which is what council is currently being paid on as part of the 2019 budget. There were adjustments made to the salaries for or remuneration for council, specifically $43,000 for the deputy mayor, $40,000 for councillor, and $100,000 plus benefits for the mayor. If you flip to page 2, the budget impact, it lays out the differences there. You'll see that the mayor is again $100,000 and benefits of $23,200. So it's before you for consideration. This has to be adopted so that council will see their or elected officials will see their wage increases.
And this is for direction, not for decision, correct?
This is for direction, with the direction being brought forward to council at the next council meeting for consideration.
Tuesday, the plan is that this would come forward then if it's okay.
No, it's got to come forward next Tuesday.
We're to January, aren't we?
It's just better to have a sit down and conversation about it, and then it'll make next Tuesday.
All right.
It's just to build on that context, and that's why we brought it to the committee. This is how the elected officials get paid. So if it's not in here, it doesn't occur. So we just wanted to throw it out on the table. If there's any adjustments or any changes that need to be made, and then we'll come back to a regular meeting.
Okay, I just want to ask one question. I first, Councillor Van Newkirk, and that is regarding what procedures in the past, if the, and I know in this case, deputy mayor has changed as well, and there were two of this council that have already had those opportunities.
It's the same differential. The differential didn't change.
Yes.
I don't understand that.
So before you're getting an additional 3,000.
It's still 3,000.
And this time the role, deputy mayor role, is still getting an additional
Oh, that's in wage that you're.
Separated.
So your differential didn't
No, that's not my question though.
affect the
Term has ended before this has even begun in two of our cases. Two of the 6 of us have already been deputy mayor.
Through the chair.
I raised this once before, so I just wanted
Yes.
to, because you said it isn't in here, then that's not.
No, through the chair, as has been mentioned, the difference is $3,000, so it won't make any difference. The fact that someone else was, I'm getting feedback, somebody else was the
It's
deputy mayor
3,000 no matter
before,
which the others
the
are.
increase is the same as 3,000. That's all the bump is.
It's a bump up
Yeah.
of 3,000 regardless of
Yeah.
when it had occurred.
As it currently is. Yes.
Good question.
Sorry, I'm slow on that one. I just couldn't.
Base is different. The bump is still the same.
Okay, okay. Perfect. Thank you.
But not retroactive.
Thank you for helping with that.
Well, yeah, this would be the intention is to make this effective January to coincide with the budget year.
Right.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
So, okay to open up then? We
Is it okay to open it up?
start discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I've got a little bit to say here tonight. I had a great break over Christmas and New Year's. For me, it allowed me to reflect by myself, all by myself, upon 2018 and think forward toward all the challenges to come in 2019. To lay out there, I'd like to suggest that Council consider moving our compensation to the amount consistent with councillors remaining whole from 2018 through to 2019. There's been an amount suggested this afternoon by the administration of $32,920 for councillors. I would ask that we double check those calculations. But the spirit of the ask would be council remaining whole from 2018 to 2019, given the federal tax changes. I want to acknowledge that council had significant discussion during budget and it continued following the budget. There's significant public engagement opportunity following our budget workshop. Some residents have expressed concern with the ability of council to approve their own raise. And I just wanted to address that no matter how we arrive at compensation numbers, through council discussion or through a consultant, ultimately council is who makes the decision. So just so that is clear. I'm a person who rests on strong policy and procedure, and amending them from time to time as we see fit. And I think that's probably what we're going to do tonight, and we should hear more on that from other councillors. And I see council's role as amending and changing policies as they see fit moving forward. Next, recognizing that tonight's discussion only, as the chair had said, final decisions on this matter will be completed in an upcoming council meeting, and I would ask that other councillors consider the request, and I look forward to hearing the thoughts of other councillors on that. So.
If I could just process-wise ask a question, I'm not sure who to ask it, but so we've dealt with this at council, and now it's coming back for procedural how to implement what we've approved. And if I'm not mistaken, when you make a decision at council to bring it back again, there's a process you have to go through. I mean, if what I'm understanding correctly, this would roll back when the budget would change.
The decision by council for the budget was to approve a budget amount similar to the fees and charges bylaw. It still needs to be approved. The specific, in this case, policy needs to be approved by council, so that's why it comes back here. The notion of making changes to that policy is fully within your
But would we not have to there would have to be another motion because we've already voted it? We have to
What we
vote
will do, provided the direction we received today, is we will bring back the policy to regular council next week and seek motion to approve.
It's a bit surprised to me. I wasn't expecting this. So, just kind of like
Yeah, no, I get that.
rethinking it all and want to make sure that we're doing what we're doing for the, and again, I appreciate Councillor Vanderkirk. I think we've all wrestled with this one, but I thought the vote was taken. And so now I'm feeling like, well, got to rethink this again. So,
through the chair, in regard to the budget, the vote was taken. Excuse me, but the policy has to still be changed. I'm getting way too close to that. The policy has to be updated, and the policy is the way council gets paid. What has happened in the past was the policy was adopted prior to the budget. This was running concurrent. It was brought up. It's allowed in the existing policy to bring forward to make changes outside of the time period that was suggested. So right in that policy, there's a sentence that allows council to bring it back, and that's what you did as part of the budget process. But given that you brought it back as part of the budget process, the policy in itself wasn't adopted at the same time. So what we're doing is making everything whole.
okay, so procedurally, you're saying it's not, we don't have to worry about it was a motion because it wasn't a motion, it was a budget motion.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, now I'm like, it's beyond procedure for me. Now it's about what was right then is not right now because there's been sober thought after or whatever. Nothing really has changed other than people thinking about it and feeling. So again, this is what going through my mind, and it's a little tough. It's a little tough to be just hit with this. And I saw these numbers, and quite honestly, I was like, okay, I don't have time to do the math here and figure out what this was because there was no words with it. It was just the numbers. Okay. So in terms of preparation for this conversation, I have had none. So I'll hear what other people would like to say and do about it. That's where I stand. Not ready to make any decision.
Which is why I was also happy that, this is the committee of the whole, and we can have this discussion, around the table here tonight. So, thank you.
Okay. Anybody? Councillor Stein.
Ask a clarifying question.
Sure.
Budget financial impact. Can you just talk me through that chart just a minute? I'm particularly looking at the line for council there. So 2018 number is $29,000, which, if I recall correctly, was the salary at the time. Then we add in 2% to take account for inflation, and we get to 9,580. And the proposed amount has been 40,000. The one that's put in is how do I get to an increase of 52,100?
The difference between 40,000 and 29,580 is 10,420 times 5 will give you the 52,100.
Because we're by 5?
That's right, because you have the deputy mayor is 7. You have the deputy mayor, which is from 32,640.
Yes, that's the delta. Right. Well, it's the difference. Multiplied by increase.
That's not individual council, that's the total increase. I had to read it twice.
I needed multiply, not get somewhere. Thank you. You've explained how we arrived at that number.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
If I may, Madam Chair, Councilman Hooper, this is the hand we just got now. So what number are you suggesting we move the remuneration for councillors from 29 to a higher number? Because the tax change, what is that actual number going to be?
Yeah, so I'd like to double check on that number. So the spirit of the ask would be on the table that you're looking at would be the 32,920. That would be the spirit of the ask, and that would be the council remains whole from 2018 through to 2019, given the federal tax changes.
So essentially, no increase other than that.
That's right.
That's what you're proposing.
Yeah, so through the chair, in regards to, and my apologies, earlier in the afternoon, I fired out an email, the initial email, and I didn't ensure that my summary above the tied into each of the lines. So this one corrects it, and this is a little further in the sense of trying to break it out, because after talking, looking at it again, confusion may come up with the 2/3 just going straight down the line. So what I want to explain is how this table works. So if you look at the mirror, Or actually, let's just go down council because we're only talking about council. So if you look at council, the white line starts at 19,720. That is 2/3 of the 29,580. And you only get taxed on that. So using H&R Block 2018 tax calculator, putting the 19,720 in there, it generates $1,100 worth of tax. That means that you have $18,620 to yourself based on that 2/3, plus your extra 1/3 of 9,860 gives you the 28,450. So that's the number that we're targeting to have a net zero. Again, it's using a tax calculator. I guess the flesh color, which is really a yellow on my thing, that was when, if you look above, is the initial calculation without using a tax calculator. What I said was 1/3 adjustment at 50%, and that created the number of 34,510. So what I then did, after we had done all this stuff and looking at other comparisons, was I said, well, let's figure out what that tax impact is on that. So when you put the 34,510 and the tax was 48.37, and that's 100% of it, you netted $29,673. Well, you're actually making more money than what you did before. Again, using the H&R Block 2018 tax calculator. So if you want to become whole, i.e. earn 28,480, what is that number? That number is 32,920 less the 44.39 will give you 28,481. So I'm out $1. I can't get it any closer. I'm not going to pennies. And I tried to stay at the $10. So that's what this. So the green is what makes it whole. I recalculated after we talked 3 times just to make sure that the tax calculator is a fund. It's particular when you enter stuff. So that would be what the number is. If you're looking at making yourself whole, again, using the assumptions of the H&R Block 2018 tax calculator. So it's based on the income. It does not look at any of the income you earn separately. So if you have pension income, if you have another job, it doesn't consider it. So the original one assumes a 50% tax increase. Could be argued it's 40, but you can get up to that 50 at a top level, depending on the type of income you have. And that was just a quick calculation.
So it's an estimate. We get that.
Yeah.
Tax, but essentially it's a 2% COLA, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no
COLA in there.
Inflation.
COLA is included in this.
Inflation.
Yeah, COLA is included because your 2018
Second column.
was 29,000, and you're starting on.
The top.
The existing policy allows for a 2% COLA, which brings it to 29,580. That would be where the base you start.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the 34,510 figure, that's assuming a 50% taxation level?
On the 1/3, yeah.
On the 1/3.
Yeah.
So if you had a significant extra income that put you into that.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I assume that everyone was at the top possible tax bracket.
Thank you. So then the size of the amount needed to keep whole, as the expression goes, depends on what taxation one is already paying.
And that is the unique thing in this says, unless you set a tax, an individual councillor pay for each tax member is where do you start? So we have retired people on council. We have people that.
It's not.
Okay.
So can I'll pull us out of these numbers. It's a philosophical question, essentially, where it's either, so we're at 49.5, so it's either 40 or it's whole, which is roughly 33 grand, right? So don't worry about the numbers on how
it does depend on what assumptions you make about taxation. There is a significant difference there, and that will not be the same for each councillor.
That's right, but it's consistent.
It's consistent, and it's we're not deciding on numbers. We're deciding on
The philosophy, the agenda, the reason why.
Do we go whole or do we go to 40? Right, and that's
That's why I led with the spirit of it is this. The number presented has been that, and we can double check that.
Yeah, don't
the spirit of the conversation is 40 or remain whole. That's what
And so essentially you've decided, so you've been influenced to change where you were before. You now think that that raise is not based on the review of what's been going on, in the review of what others are making, that it's not warranted. We should stay where we are and not change. That's where you've come to that
No, I
rationale.
don't think so. No, I don't think that's fair to say at all. So first of all, I don't think I've been influenced. I've considered all of the information around me. I've talked with folks who I respect a lot. I've reflected individually. I've seen both sides of the issue. I was very, very much involved in all the discussions to get the 40, and if I remember correctly, I said it was fair, defensible, and reasonable at 40, right? And so,
That's why I'm wondering what changed.
what changed for me is some time to reflect by myself, to think about why did I put my name forward to get involved in council? Why did I put myself forward to be elected? Why did I run in the by-election? And for me, it was never about money. It was never about dollars. It was about being able to make an impact and decisions on a Tuesday night that would affect people positively on a Wednesday. And when I rest on those laurels and I move back to the spirit of why we're here, the discussion of why we're here, it comes back to me being more comfortable and me being a person who rests on policy and procedure. I do it at work every day. In fact, in my personal life, when we owned a business and this discussion was put in front of us, we, 3 business owners, decided to bring a consultant in and do, similar to the process that'll be discussed after this and that was used originally to get to 29 to move it forward. So it's where I'm more comfortable, and it's where it's where my head's at now. I guess that's the best I can explain it to you.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment on anything?
No, Martin, please.
Councillor Danlin. No.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had quite the debate, I think, at budget workshop on how we went out with our initial budget at the 49. We did a very good job, I think, of engaging the public individually, publicly through open houses, the newspaper, website of the town, and so on. And we got some pretty good feedback from a lot of people in town, and we, I thought, responded to it. I thought we responded well, and we acted, I think, quite responsibly when we had the debate at council before Christmas. Was it before Christmas? I think it was. I'm lost track of time. Mm-hmm. Where the suggestion was to go to 40. We had debated that, I think, quite openly, and I think everyone felt comfortable, and the vote went through, I think, at the 40,000. I respectfully, Steve, I'm not questioning you. I'm losing my thought here, but I'm not sure you've changed in your concern since that time. And I'm comfortable with the 40,000. And when we had that 40,000 debate, we had some numbers given to us from Mr. Harris that, for example, Fort Saskatchewan was going to be at 45,646 after the tax adjustment for the 2019 budget year, plus COLA, plus benefits and pension, I believe. Leduc City was going to 43,388, plus they have a pension plan, plus they get benefits as a councillor. Stony Plain was going to be at 37,500, also plus pension, plus benefits. We came in at 40,000 with no pension and no benefits for councillors. There's been no benefits and pension for councillors since, well, Senator Henderson can tell me it's been quite a while. And you know what I mean. I know I respect the history of it, you know that. So I still think then I think at 40,000 with no benefits, no pension until we finish our term, and we have a notice of motion from Councillor Monkoff-Swain, I think is a prudent motion to more formalize the process. In the past, that's been honestly a bit willy-nilly. It's not been a formalized process where it could go 4 or 5 years without any kind of a change, or 1 year without a change. We're doing the right step by entertaining the notice of motion, which I'm going to be in favor of, having a more formalized, a certain set date and time where council nomination is reviewed. I stated in the budget process, I've never been more uncomfortable in my life having a conversation than giving myself a raise is how it's viewed. But the Government Act says only council can do this work. Despite how uncomfortable it makes us feel, that's how it is. I honestly think the 40,000 number was reasonable after some reflection from both administration's numbers and feedback from the public. I thought that was a pretty reasonable number, and I thought we had agreed on that. Now, I'm not saying we can't open it again. Maybe we can open it again. I think we did our due diligence. We listened to the public, and many people who were very vocal on social media, that handful of people were very vocal. I respect that. But many people don't go on social media who told me, well, guys, 49 is kind of high, but you're at 40 now. Tell me why. I told them I can live with that. Maybe you'll say, you don't get benefits or pension? No, we don't. Why not? Well, because we didn't give it to ourselves. That's the answer, because only we can give it to ourselves. So I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to be respectful of my colleagues' change of heart. Sorry, not change of heart. Option being presented this evening. But I honestly think the 40,000 number was reasonable how we came about it. And I think we have to look at, I think it's fair to have pension and benefits on the table in the future. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, looking at my spreadsheets here. Yes, I agree with Councillor Markov-Swain. It's a philosophical question. In the end, the only reason I asked the question initially was I simply want to know which amount we're talking about. Which of the amounts is it that makes us whole, and what assumptions is that based on? It will be different from councillor to councillor, which further complicates the issue because we have to come up with a policy that fits everybody, that fits us all and treats us all the same. That's how it has to be. In terms of, yes, just to follow on from Councillor Danlock, yes, there's no question council has to pass a budget. That's a statutory requirement. The council salaries are a line item in that budget, so council has to decide that too. And there's no choice. That has to be done. There's no escaping that responsibility. So yeah, we have to set our own salaries because nobody else is allowed to do it. And yeah, it does put us in an uncomfortable position sometimes, which we have to address and take the lumps with everything that goes with that. Philosophically, the question really boils down to: do we simply make ourselves whole? Compensate for inflation and say, and taxation changes and say, well, the value of the work we did in 2018 was the same as the value of the work we did in 2019, and therefore we should be remunerated at the same rate overall? Or do we philosophically say, well, the other municipalities, as Councillor Danlock's just referred to, pay considerably more? If there was any kind of market operating in these things, then which there isn't, right? There can't be. Yeah. It's not a real market because we can't just decide, well, hey, St Albert pays better for councillors. I think I'll go and be a councillor in St Albert instead, which is perhaps what you might be able to do if there was a real market operating. True. And similarly, consumers of town services can't decide that they'll pay a different tax because somewhere else is lower without moving. So there isn't really an operation of market. So we have to decide what the market rate is by comparison with comparable municipalities, if that's the route we're going to take. And I can add some more numbers to that because I dug into some information I found for myself as well as the ones that Mr. Harris gave us. There was some discussion of Chestermere, but again, being paid pensions and benefits, and I estimate that they must be actually remunerated to the tune of about 39 to 40,000. So again, it's comparable really when you take all things into consideration. Similarly, there was also discussion about the size of the population and whether that was an influence. And I started to look at Devon, and I think they're in the 41, 42,000 area when I take into account what they've budgeted. And that's on a third of the population of Beaumont, roughly. The philosophical question is, the philosophical question is, how do we decide whether we should be paid similar to comparable municipalities, or do we just say, well, take the same net take-home pay after inflation as we've always done in the past? But I thought with you that we had already made that decision.
I thought we did too. Councillor Danlock, are you?
Yeah.
Councillor Danlock?
Just a bit of levity in the conversation is that in the open houses that we had back before Christmas, I attended both of them as you all did too. Thank you for doing that. some people had some concerns, and they came to express those concerns, and part of it was council nomination. That's fine. And I explained the reason for 49, and we discussed after it's going down to 40, as you know. But people came up, and I asked some of them who were very passionate. I said, "You're very passionate about Beaumont." "Yes, I am." "You should run for council." They said, "No way. I can't afford the social media. I can't afford being hurt like that, and you can't pay enough to be a councillor." It was their parting joke.
It's not about
And I thought, it's not about the money, but they were saying, I thought it was kind of funny. They were hesitant to be exposed to social media, but they couldn't pay enough to do it. But, they understand where we're coming from. So,
Okay.
small comment there.
Mayor, do you want to weigh in on?
Nope, this is you guys. So
Well, I know it is, but I got to say that I'm thinking that what we do should have some implication for what the mayor's salary is. And I hate to venture there, but at the same time, I think it's a question that if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
I'm operating under the philosophical philosophy that the decision was made.
No,
And
that's
so
what I thought.
have ordered my life around that and what's currently in the policy. Plus, I also have two issues I want to bring up in relation to the mayor's thing. As far as I'm concerned, when we had massive discussions of budget, we had another one on the night we passed the budget and rolled it back to 40. And I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised we're here again. Because we can't keep revisiting this decision.
You want to bring out the other two issues later?
Oh yeah, I'm not going to muddy the waters with this.
Okay, Councillor Hendricks.
So, 8 councils later, and I'll be the senator. This matter's been before every one of them. It wasn't that long ago, and I have to check the dates, but I think it was $500 a month, and you got the tax on that. We are always this community was always way behind anybody else in terms of comparable size and style and whatever. But there was always even the arguments that we should be doing this as a volunteer. There should be no remuneration at all. And we've heard those arguments. I've heard the arguments. Where do you go from that to, the gentleman and the lady and the gentleman who did the last consult and then went through the entire process certainly found that there was this strange, I would call uncomfortable process with every one of us was interviewed individually, and they had the same sort of resonance from all of us. Like, this is uncomfortable. Why are we talking about this? Just tell us, what do you think we should get? And let's hope it sticks somewhere and let's go. And even in that conversation, it was, let's at least get to this point, which is where we are today. Which is not the conversation that we've gone from since, because now we're going to go to a full-time mayor. The equivalency was a 2-to-1. Whatever the mayor's getting, council gets half of whatever that is, right? And equivalency, and that was that was the route. But now we've decided we're not going to do that. We're going to go 60-40, even less. And, all because we're getting pressured or we're feeling that same that all 8 other councils had. Like, how do you set? And then there was talk that there should be a third-party committee of citizens that just make these decisions and it doesn't have to be brought here. And then that's been scrapped. So we've gone through the self-reflection. We've gone through getting a consultant. We've gone through 2-to-1. That's the rule. We're not going to go that way. We've gone through the social media piece. We've finally settled in on a number, and we're going to reopen that wound and get that uncomfortable piece going again at the next council meeting. What would happen if somebody moved that we all do this as a voluntary position for $1?
We take it to council.
We take it to council, right?
Because we're not voting on this today.
That's right. So that's what I'm getting at. That's the range of discussion.
We're hoping to have direction and policy so that it reads the way we need it to read.
I know, but this is a tough one when this wasn't what I thought we were discussing today. So, I mean, I appreciate it. Everyone has an option to change their mind, but I'm like flummoxed with what to do with this at this point. So.
Yeah, just to round it up for myself. I guess the process allows it. We have a discussion. There's a week, and then there's a vote, right? So the process allows it as the CAO put forward, and I did check to make sure the process allows this before I put time and effort into doing it, right? So the conversation is on side. The process does allow it, and
if I may, as the chair, the process is here to approve the policy. That's where I'm stuck, because the policy is one thing. It's got numbers in it. That's budget. And so, we're voting on a policy. At this point, we can just call, say this is good, let it go, because we're not voting on it. If the direction is it has to change, then that has to go to, and someone has to make a motion at council to change that, right? And we don't have a notice of motion to do that. So I honestly am a bit concerned about process here.
I don't think we need a notice of motion to change the numbers in the document. I mean, that's council can, CAO, correct me if I'm wrong, but council can provide direction tonight to say change this number to this, and then it comes to council to be approved, or on the Tuesday.
Or to be not approved.
Or to be not approved, because you can always vote against it.
Seems odd to me.
I can weigh in.
Anyway.
Turn out my microphone, I'll just turn it back on. I didn't want so. What we're doing here today at the committee is crafting the policy. We're not approving the policy. So what administration is looking for, based on our best recollection of the last discussion, we have drafted this document. We now bring it to this group to say, is there any changes you want to make to it? Next week is when you vote on whether you approve the policy. So if you recall, one of the reasons we get into these discussions, as Councillor Van Newkirk said, is this is the opportunity to roll up our sleeves and just throw stuff out while we're crafting this policy. So it's fully within process, and this ideally is the way it needs to unfold.
It may be, but finding a consensus right now on this is going to be tough, I think. Which is what the mayor liked us to do.
Consensus.
Well, I don't think you're going to get consensus.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have a semi-little vote, and that's what it's going to be.
Councillor Monkoff-Swain?
Which we can still do with this, it's just not.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to go around anymore. I think Councillor Van Newkirk put a proposal on the table. It didn't get any support from 5 other folks, so I think
you're about to weigh in?
No, I'm not going to weigh in. I think my position is clear on all this right from the start, so I don't think it's fair for me to weigh in. I'm just trying to move us forward. Fair, put it forward, didn't get the support, so I think we move forward with what is in the policy. That would just to get us through, because I know you've got things that you want to get forward. I think, is that fair to you?
For sure. Yeah. That's the process, that's the spirit of what I brought forward,
So, because I want to touch on number 7, but you wanted to those
2 small items that.
Anyone else have anything else to say, or let just move on? Okay.
So if I can just weigh in and just piggyback off of what was said from administration's perspective, the direction that we receive regarding councillors' remuneration is the numbers that are in that policy, and we will bring that piece back next Tuesday. Now, I understand there's some other changes.
I mean, and for the record, I did my homework as others did, and came to the conclusion I did when the decision was made that it was a fair amount. So to revisit that again to me would only be because there was enough political fallout that made sense to do it. But at this point, I don't think that's the case. So anyway, Mayor.
Okay, so in relation to the mayor's remuneration, there was 2 things I'd like council to consider. One is we currently have a policy where we can claim mileage as soon as we leave the city limits. With the amount of travel forecasted, I'm foreseeing a ton of paperwork, and I was wondering if council would, because every time you go, you gotta fill it out, sign it, and it's 53 cents a kilometer, and off it goes. If you guys would consider a vehicle allowance to cover that, to cover travel anywhere within the Edmonton metropolitan region borders, so the municipalities that make up the Edmonton metropolitan region, versus always having to submit a claim. So I don't, like I say, the budget's still there. I'm trying to make paperwork easy.
You're suggesting an amount, or you'd leave that to the administration to come back with that amount?
Well, yeah, we could leave it to administration. my quick calculations were somewhere around 500
for the year,
for the month.
for the month? For every council? The mayor.
For the mayor. If you guys
And
want to
what would
consider
you-
it for you, that's another conversation.
Okay, so then again, if it's saving paperwork, there's one versus six. So
Well-
if it's, paperwork there, it's you still do the same amount of paperwork even if you don't get as much.
Well, you have to do a bit of a projection on
It wouldn't be 500.
on how often you're going to actually leave the city limits to do business. And with the mayor's job turning from a part-time to a full-time job, I expect to be on the road on town business a fair bit more than I am now. So.
I'll speak to that because the mayor's going to want feedback. I understand the logic of what you're saying. I do. I think it'd be prudent to do the first year on a per kilometer basis, establish what kind of a baseline that would be, and then maybe we could look at the policy in the second or third year to say, well, over the first and second year, kilometers were this amount, and then go to a flat amount thereafter. I think it would be prudent, and we've got something to compare it to. I think it'd be reasonable to do it that way.
Sure, I'm okay with that.
So I would suggest leaving the per kilometer allowance in there and be claimed as you incur.
Looks like that's.
Yeah, I support that. I have to do a lot of travel with my work, and I think there's a accountability perspective for that as well, transparency, and so yeah, I support the kilometer piece.
No problem. I'm just, like I say, I hate paper, so anything I can do to save myself.
And did you have a second?
And the other thing is because this does turn into a full-time job, and not necessarily looking to add this to the policy today, but maybe relook at it in the future. Be looking at, it's called a transition allowance in Strathcona County. So if you lose the election or leave, they get 2 weeks of severance for every year served. As it goes. So with it being a full-time job, if you left your civilian employment, for lack of a better phrase, you would get severance commensurate with Alberta labor laws and standards and what's going on. From a employment perspective, you come to the end of the term, you decide to run again, you lose, all of a sudden your salary goes to zero. Which is one thing. So then what do you do? Do you go out and find another job 3 months before the term ends and then have to quit it if you win? Or what do you want? How do you want to focus that? So I'm looking for some feedback on that.
Mr. Stout?
Can I just confirm what I heard you said? There is no severance at all?
No, there's none. It's zero. You lose the election, you stop getting paid.
Yes. So, yes, I think it's reasonable to have some severance if it's a full-time position. I think that's it. And I'm not sure why it wouldn't conform with Alberta regulations, other than the fact that it's probably not covered specifically by that legislation. I'm not sure why we wouldn't take that as the standard.
Yeah, it's not covered by legislation. It has to be approved here.
Any comments?
So my comment would be, so I appreciate Strathcona County has it. I'd like, and I think you're clear in this, that we don't need to figure it out today. I'd like more information about the other full-time municipalities, how they deal with that. There's got to be some sort of process from a provincial level that they deal with. Obviously, they're in the same boat. So I'd just like a bit more information before committing to put something in here. We have some time. I think it's an important discussion to have for sure. But I'd like to see more information on what others in similar situations do.
I think that's one of the reasons I was thinking when you were suggesting the full-time, that be careful what you ask for, because going full-time means you don't have your foot in another career, and then you're out totally, and then so I see the dilemma, but I think that's the choice of full-time versus part-time. Councillor, did I see your hand up? No? Councillor Dunlap?
I echo Councillor McCaw-Swain's comments. I think I'd like to see as well administration bring back to us any full-time mayors in the province and what the severance issues are. It was never an issue before because the mayor was always part-time, so therefore never an issue before.
Can we bring it back for budget? Or not necessarily for budget, but around budget time?
Is it 2020?
So it's not in the policy, you're saying bring it back separate?
Spring planning.
Spring planning. Yeah.
Spring planning?
Yeah.
What's spring planning?
March.
As in strat plan review, then, is that what we're talking
Spring planning sets the lorry.
about? During that report, I suppose we could add the data in there. That's a good point. Yeah, we could do that.
Sure, bring back, so then we'll continue that conversation then.
It's more to have a discussion, I agree. It's more to have it, and with more information to make it informed and appropriate.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's not necessarily something I was looking for a discussion on tonight, but something that needs to be considered.
Should be on the radar.
Our decision should be on the radar.
Should be on the radar.
Because the other thing is that it needs to be, you need to make this job attractive to people that don't have a second separate source of income. Otherwise, you block out a whole bunch of candidates that, because I'm kind of crazy, because I'm a political junkie, I will take the risk. I've never had a problem finding a job ever, so I'm pretty confident. But other people might want that little bit of security that if they lose their job, that they might need a couple of months to transition to back to their old career or a new career.
Any other comments? Jeff, no?
Just my, regarding section 7 in here about the mandatory review of policy. So just a thank you to administration for including that. So I think we've heard some comments around here, but I think it's prudent for us to look at it and give each council the year prior to. So this will give council 3 years to kind of go through and get a good sense, have that independent review done, and then they'll be able to comment on it. I think it was pretty, I think a lot of people mentioned how awkward it was, particularly for a few of the fresher faces who didn't necessarily have a full picture of what the 4-year piece entails. So I appreciate you entering, putting that into the policy.
And just if I could clarify, if this is approved on Tuesday, that would mean in 2020 there would be another review?
Yes.
Out before October of 2020, because of October of 2021 is the election, so that's...
Yes. And to be clear, the old policy said something similar to that, but it just said 2020 and didn't talk about future policies.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if the government changes and let's say Mr. Scheer wants to roll back and say all council salaries is tax-free, then maybe we have this conversation again, right? Obviously, you talk about this. We go through this budget on an annual cycle, right? But I think it's clear, it's good for us to make sure we try and follow our policy as best we can, and that's what the intent of this is trying.
And this is an outside review by a consultant, so we'll no sooner finish this one and there'll be another one.
Well,
which is fine. I agree. I don't disagree.
It's 2 years away.
Yeah, and it throws it to the budget committee to make a final decision. So.
Okay. I think Councillor Stout and then Councillor Hammond.
Mine was just regarding the severance issue. We don't, however, need to have that policy in place before 2021 then.
Yeah, because it's not going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to be around for the next 3 years.
So we do have plenty of time to consider this.
Unless I get hit by a bus.
Impeachment?
And then,
No, there's no such thing as that here.
But then,
there's very few ways to get rid of a sitting elected official.
I listen to too much American news. I'm sorry.
But then you wouldn't be collecting severance, regardless of the policy.
Oh, you could negotiate.
Well, that's true, right?
Anyway, we're off topic. Councillor.
Speaking of paperwork, so with the Beaumont Sports and Recreation membership, there's forms to fill out.
Oh.
So last year I just paid my way. I like to get there in the morning and right by his place as he's going to work on the way home. For workout. Is there a reason why we have to fill out the forms? Like, why can't we just get a
because they don't
membership card in your document? Like, what is it that you need from us?
Your picture.
We just like to register who's using the facility. And we want to see your handsome picture on a card. It's all those
I'll have to go to your challenge, but so that's the only.
We're looking at streamlining with the new building coming on, and there's a few things we do that are a little archaic, like putting a wristband on. So we're all looking at those things.
And it's nice that they at times can't figure out whether or not you got the seniors rate or they just automatically charge you out. But I got to say, I had a neat experience at the Bouchard Gardens. This took like 8 minutes tops, all in, all done. sit down, bang.
That's not you.
That's gorgeous me. Yeah, that's right. So
Okay, was there anything
you know what I'm
else?
saying? So I'm just saying, instead of going through the type A, type B blood and retina.
Mr. Harris, do we need something else to?
No, I just wanted to
direction-wise?
confirm the only change that I will be making to the policy is to number 8, effective date. This policy, FIN 1901, elected officials remuneration, will be effective January 1st, 2019, and rescind policy FIN 1602.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I do not see any other items. There's no in-camera session, no information items, so then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.